because great is thy faithfulness. I could open the doors of the church right there because that's a message within itself. Just whatever you're going through, been through, headed to, if I could get you to remember that great is the faithfulness of God, I would have done a good job with this sermon. Well, I told you last week that Lamentations is a very interesting book. Chapter 1 is the book of remembrance. Chapter 2 is the book of ruins. Chapter 3 is the book of renewal. Somebody say renewal. Renewal. In other words, it's going to get better. Yeah, it's going to get better. 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 Somebody say amen right there. Amen. It may be all right for you, but you don't know what the person sitting beside you is going through. So look at that person and tell them it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. Chapter 4 is restitution. Chapter 4 is restitution. And then chapter 5 is relief. And I remember saying to each of us on last Sunday that there is a sweet relief in knowing the Lord will make a way somehow. And so we open up chapter 3 and we look at chapter 3, and one of the first things we see in this chapter is personal pain. Personal pain, personal pain. And this third dirge, if you will, this third poem, this third requiem, eulogy, this third lament, this third cry, this third expression of grief, the poet Jeremiah, he sort of stops talking about what Jerusalem and Zion and Judah are going through, and he speaks for himself. Jeremiah shares how the invasion of his homeland has affected him. He shares how the loss of all that he holds dear to his heart has affected him. And what I like about this, and it would do all of us well, what Jeremiah does in this text is he opens up. He opens up. He opens up. He talks. He speaks. He releases. He discharges. There's, you would need, Motrins and ibuprofens and Tylenol and do they still make BCs and goodies? How many of y'all remember the BCs and the goodies? You remember the goodies that you, yeah. Do they still make that? Well, we'll talk about that later. But you wouldn't need the goodies and the BCs and these other things if you could just open up and release and have and discharge some of this stuff that puts pressure in our hearts and our minds and our spirits. I'm really believing that God, through this book of Lamentations, is simply trying to get us to open up. Now, I know what you're saying. You say, I wouldn't mind talking if I had somebody I could talk to. If there was somebody that I really could trust. I don't care how many times you've been deceived, there's somebody that you can trust. There's somebody that you can talk to. I want to tell you this, that's why God gave us wives. And this is why God gave us husbands. marriages will get a little better. Talk to your wife. Talk to your husband. I found out that the best friend I have in the world sleeps with me every night. Not every night. Sometimes she sleeps on the couch. But sleeps with me quite a few nights. Yeah. So there's got to be some discharge. And so in this text, in a long list of metaphors, Jeremiah enumerates the many afflictions that he, as Judah's representative, suffered at the hand of God's wrath. Well, I want you to know he was confused as he watched God seemingly reverse his past good attitudes and actions. Instead of walking in the light of God's guidance, he had been forced to stumble in darkness. He says in verse 6, he has set me in dark places as they that be dead of old. Now he's really, you talk about Old Testament, he's really quoting other Old Testament scriptures, like Psalms chapter 88 or number 88, verses 5 through 7. Psalms 88, 5 through 7. It talks about in verse 5, free among the dead. How free do you think you are among the dead? Like the slain that lie in the grave, whom thou rememberest no more, and they are cut off from thy hand. Thou hast laid me, Jeremiah says, in the darkest, in the lowest pits, in the darkness, in the deeps. And then he quotes Psalms chapter 1, number 143, verse 3. Now you got to understand, this is Jeremiah just dumping on us today. Amen. And so we're kind of okay with Jeremiah dumping on us because we understand the need to dump sometimes. And so he's dumping on us, and he quotes Psalms 143, which says, for the enemy has persecuted my soul. He has smitten my life down to the ground. He has made me to dwell in darkness as those that have been dead long, which is to refer so long until they stinketh. God has brought stench to my life. And so Lamentations chapter 3, God turned his head against Jeremiah.